Hello YouTube. Alright, today I'm going to show you how to use some basic stuff you're going to find at Home Depot to make a self-watering tomato planter. So what I did was I went to Home Depot and got a couple of these buckets that stick together really hard. You're going to use two 5-gallon buckets, one 32-ounce cup from McDonald's or whatever other junk food store you want to go to, some PVC piping. I use 3/4 inch. For tools, pretty basic stuff. You're going to use, I used a Dremel with a little drill bit to use like a router, standard tape measure, pair of scissors, hacksaw for cutting the tubing, and a Sharpie. Alright, I've already put together a couple of these, got them sitting over in the corner of my backyard. I'll show you here in just a minute. But first I'm going to show you how this all goes together. First of all, your base. This is going to be your water basin. This is going to be where your water is stored that self-waters your tomato plants. So you don't have to check them every day. You're not going to overwater. You're not going to underwater. Okay? You're not going to have to deal with mildew and rot issues on your tomatoes. You don't do anything to that. That sits there. What you're going to modify is your top bucket. It slips inside it. But what I did was I took one of my 32-ounce soft drink cups and I measured about halfway up on the cup, my tape measure. Measured the diameter, measured the same diameter on the bottom of my bucket here. Took my Dremel, turned it on, plunged it into the bottom like that, scribed around in the circle that I had traced using my tape measure and my Sharpie pen. Alright, after I had done that, I double checked the fit. Made sure it would fit, but that a little bit extra is going to stick up. Okay, that keeps it from plunging through into the bottom bucket there. You'll notice I have another hole here. I measured that by tracing around the end of my PVC pipe. And that's for your drain, or beg your pardon, that's for your fill tube. Okay, that's how you can actually water and get water into your bottom reservoir bucket. Alright, what I did here, as I mentioned earlier, was I scribed around the circle that was indicated by halfway up my drinking cup. You end up with one of those little discs. I have a total of 3 of these. I cut one out, it's just easier. You take the first one, trace around each of the next ones. If you have more than one of these containers you're going to be making, use it as a template. Alright. Once I went ahead and I had my my hole come out of my top bucket, I went ahead, like I said, I checked that out, the diameter, made sure it would fit. That's, at that point in time, that was when I went ahead and cut my cups. You don't want to cut them ahead of time. You want to make sure you drop it in there, make sure it fits properly and doesn't fall all the way through. Once you get that, you trace a line around with your Sharpie as it sits inside the bottom bucket. Except I've got that in there upside down. Alright. So it's going to look like this. Alright. That sits in there just like that. And you can see that I got a little bit of a lip hanging up right there. Alright. And once I've got that in there, and I've got my hole drilled for my fill tube. And by the way, when I cut my piping, I cut that at a kind of a, not quite a 45-degree angle, but just so it doesn't sit flush with the bottom, I want to make sure that water gets in there unimpeded. Okay, I'm going to drop that into the hole like this. It's going to sit in there. Let me grab the phone here real quick. Excuse the shakiness. It's going to sit in there right like that. Okay, then you're going to put all your dirt, your tomato plant, and then finally, that'll be sitting like that. This will be where you pour your water in. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. My wife's going to give me a hand. We're going to go ahead and plant one in this bucket. Let me set this up. Here's my tomato plant. Get my electric out of the way. Get my soil. Alright, so I've got my cup seated in the bottom of the hole, making sure it's all the way down. You want to fill that cup. And by the way, that little cup, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I got a whole bunch of little holes. That's where the water's going to go through, okay? It's going to take from the bottom container up through this into the soil to the roots of your tomato plant. Again, seat that properly. Fill that little cup up with soil. You don't have to pack it in there real hard, but you want to make sure it's not going to leave any gaps between the inside of that cup and the root ball of your tomato plant. Now, like I said, I've already planted 2 of these, so this bag is pretty well depleted. I'm going to go ahead and just dump the rest of this in there. You wouldn't mind holding that still for me? And this is just, got this at Costco. It's just organic patio potting mix plus. Has a little bit of some fertilizer in there, but you can use anything that's for potting. You don't want to use in-ground, you don't want to use shrub and tree. You want to use actual true potting mix. Now we're going to go ahead and put this in there, not too much at a time, so I don't want to have to pull more out later when I go to put my plant in. I fill it up about halfway, then I double check my depth. Got about 8-inch depth here on my pot. Looks about right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. Be careful to cradle the ball. If it's root bound like this one is just starting to get, make sure you loosen your roots up just a little bit. Okay, that way they're free to grow. Hold that steady for me. Go ahead and pack your soil in around. This is the messy part. The great part about this is, if like us, you use a lot of tomatoes, this thing is going to pay for itself in a month's time or so. I think we went to Costco today, got this 3-pack of tomato plants for $7. It was $2.79, I think, for each of the buckets, and then 1 piece of PVC. The tools I had on hand. All right, just like that, it's planted. That's right. One last thing you want to make sure you do. Very important. When you have this planted in here like this, and you have a reservoir of water, you don't want that to sit in there in the heat, and your roots to sit in water and not be able to get rid of excess water. Okay, the way that you can leave this alone for even 2, 3, maybe even 4 days at a time, without having to worry about it being overwatered or underwatered, is you're going to have a little bit of an overflow hole. Alright, so again, I take my little drill bit. I'm going to go to just under the bottom of the top bucket and plunge a little hole and make it a little bit, maybe half the size of a dime. What happens is, if you overfill, it's going to flow out of there, and that's how you know you've got that little reservoir full. Okay? Take care of that now. All right. Let me show you what that looks like. All right, so as you can see, I just put this little hole right here. Okay? That's how it's going to look. Got the variety there. That's your fill pipe. There's your plant. We're going to get that watered in. Let me show you how I've got the other 2 over here set up. Excuse the walking, don't get seasick. Okay, I've got a couple of varieties. These 2 I did earlier before I started the video. Already watered them in. You can see my overflow holes here. You see that one's water's just right there, if you can see that. When you fill that up through these tubes, any extra is going to flow out. You're never going to have too much. Check it every 2-3 days. See how it's looking. If you can tip this and get water out, you know you're good. If it doesn't, add a little bit until it flows out. That's all I got. That's it for today. Thanks.